All right. So we're going to get started. So today we're continuing our series on getting set for success for college. We're going to be talking about online classes and our online classes right for you. I am Ileana Kwaski, and I'm going to switch off of this screen for just a second. And I'm here to provide these tips. For the past 15 years, I have overseen online education. I have taught courses online. I have led faculty in developing courses and programs online. I've even taken a few courses myself. And so that's why I'm here today to present some of these tips to you. And I'm here with my colleague, Kayla Jutzi, who's going to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, I'm Kayla Jutzi. I'm an instructional designer at the School of Professional Advancement. So I help faculty from behind the scenes within the school, building online courses and reviewing their work and giving them guidance on what makes a successful online course. I've been in the field of online education for almost 10 years now.
Fantastic. Thanks, Kayla. So whether you are considering changing careers, or maybe you want to learn a new skill, or maybe you want to complete that degree that you started some years ago, you might be thinking, should I be doing this online? And so today we're going to be talking about online classes and hopefully answering some questions throughout the presentation. So we're going to advance to the next screen. So in our presentation, hopefully we answer these questions. What is online learning, and what do the words synchronous and asynchronous mean? And if you've been exploring online education and considering online learning, you probably have seen both. What do I need to be successful as an online student? So I'll talk about different elements about online courses and what you can do as a student to help you be the most successful. What is the difference between on-ground courses and an online course? So very fundamentally, we'll talk about how courses are developed and how they look when you're online and on ground. And then Kayla's actually going to take you through a tour of some courses here at Tulane SOPA. And I should say SOPA, it's the School of Professional Advancement, we call it SOPA. So she's going to take you through a tour of different courses so you can see what it looks like. If you're considering taking that next step, this might be helpful to you in doing that. So with that, I want to explain some of the terms that we use in online education. So in the traditional classroom, we depend on that interaction between instructors and students, and students and students. It's critical for student success to have that interaction, to have what we call that engagement. So in online classes, we have to find ways to have that interaction, to have that engagement. And we can do that synchronously or asynchronously. So again, if you've been considering online courses, you may have seen these words, or you may have seen programs that they're synchronous or asynchronous, or a combination of both. So what does that mean? Well, in both cases, it's online. So you're taking courses online and you're taking them virtually. If it's synchronous, it's in the timing. It's happening live in real time. Like right now, this is a synchronous meeting and it's happening via a platform called Zoom. In an asynchronous class, you're completing the work at your own schedule. So you're not bound to being online at any specific time. So you're typically given a time frame to complete the work. So you might have different things, and Kayla's going to take you through some modules, different activities to go through in the online classroom. But when you do that is entirely up to you. So with an asynchronous course, or a course that has asynchronous elements, those elements are happening on your time, whether it's 5 in the afternoon, 5 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. You're not bound to being online at any specific time. Now, it's important that you do participate, and it is important that you are online and checking in. We'll talk about that in a minute, but when you're online is up to you. With a synchronous course, students are meeting online with their instructors at a scheduled time, and they're doing that using a platform such as this, which is Zoom. There could be synchronous requirements that involve chatting or instant messaging. So that's also a way to be synchronous, where you're interacting live with your fellow students or with faculty through messaging. And again, it's happening in real time. So it means that students are bound to a schedule. So lectures, discussions, presentations, they may be happening at a specific time. Many classes are a combination of both. They might have some asynchronous elements, so work that you can complete on your own at your own schedule, with some synchronous elements, with some live real-time meetings, and that may vary. So there might be courses, so as an example, at SOPA, we have our graduate programs, they meet once a month live. So the graduate students complete much of the work asynchronously, on their own time in the online classroom, and then once a month they get together with their faculty and students. And it'll vary. It could be once a week, every other week, once a month. That will depend. So the interactions are occurring with this in terms of synchronous on a platform like this, and asynchronously in the online classroom, which is in another term called the LMS, your learning management system. So at Tulane, our LMS is Canvas, but you might have heard of others like Blackboard or Sakai, depending on what school that you're interested in. But the online classroom, that's what we refer to our learning management system. So ours is in Canvas. The biggest advantage with courses that are asynchronous is the flexibility. So it offers you flexibility. You can get into that online classroom at whatever time that you want. The biggest advantage to the synchronous courses with the synchronous element is that real-time interaction, so that you can interact with your faculty and with fellow students. All right, so now that we've seen, we know the difference between synchronous and asynchronous, we're going to move on to the next slide and talk about different elements of learning in the online class. So let me start by saying that the amount of work with an online class is the same. It's not easier, it's not less work to be taking an online class. It's actually quite a bit of work. So the taking an online class doesn't mean that it's less work. It just again offers more flexibility, and you don't have to be on campus. But let's look at the different elements of online learning and what you would need to do to be successful. So we'll start with the online course itself. So now that you know what asynchronous and synchronous mean, you want to think about, again, when you're considering online learning, what's the best fit for you? So do you have a job that you don't have a lot of flexibility in your schedule, or you don't have a lot of control over your schedule, or maybe your schedule varies often? If that's the case, maybe a course that has more asynchronous elements is right for you. So if you can't commit to a certain time, maybe a course that is meeting synchronously every week may not be the best fit. But maybe you can commit to once a month. So these are things that you need to consider as you are considering, as you're thinking about taking an online course. So asynchronous versus synchronous, what's the best fit for you? The technology. You are online, so you should ensure that you have the right technology to be successful as a student. And that usually involves having a computer, having access to the internet. Cameras are pretty essential. Headsets, and we'll talk about it in a second, headsets are often essential. So having the right technology is important to being a successful student. Now, I should say that Canvas, our LMS is an example. All of these, they usually have, for tablets and cell phones, they usually have applications that you can access your online course with your tablet or with your phone. These applications, though, are limited compared to what you can do with the computer. So just to keep that in mind as you're making your decision for online learning. So once you've decided on the type of class, so you ensure that you have the right technology to access the class, you register for it, and then the next thing is to actually take a tour of the class, which again, Kayla's going to take you on a tour of a class, a few classes actually, but you want to get familiar with the class. So where are the discussions? Where do you submit assignments? When are the assignments due? You need to become very familiar with the syllabus and with due dates, because the syllabus will set the expectations for the course. So become familiar with your syllabus. Also become familiar with what resources are available to you as a student, as an online student. And this could be everything from the library and how to access the library, student centers, tutoring, writing centers, those types of resources that are available. And remain open-minded. This might be new for you, and that's okay. It might be awkward the very first class that you take. The very first course that I taught online, it feels strange to be interacting like this the first time and the first few times, and that's okay. Just stay open-minded. You will become more comfortable with the technology and with the interaction as you proceed. So even if it feels awkward, that's all right. That's normal. That's usually, most of us experience that. All right, another critical element is communication. So we talked about that engagement and interaction with your fellow students in the classroom and with your instructors in the classroom. This is still very, very critical, and probably even more critical online, because you don't have that real time, you're not face to face. So you want to be able to establish rapport with your peers and with your instructors. So ensure that you have open communication. A lot of what you're doing online is written communication. So make sure that you are able to communicate well in writing. And if you feel like that's an area for development, reach out to your advisor, seek out help from a writing center. You want to maintain communication with your instructors, ask for help when it's needed. Communication, it's important to be professional and to be respectful. So what you would do in a classroom on campus, you still want to do the same online. So you want to have that same level of respect and professionalism in a virtual classroom. And so you'll often see when you go into an online class, in the syllabus, there are requirements and rules around netiquette. And that's just you're interacting and maintaining professionalism and respect for your peers and for your instructors. Communication, also keep your eyes out on your school email. So once you do register, once you do get admitted and enrolled in the school, you'll be given an email address, and you'll receive communications from your advisors, from your program director, from school administrators, like people like me. I send out updates, and this keeps you connected to the school community. All right, so the next one is time management. So while you have a great deal of flexibility, you also, that there's a lot of work that you will be doing in your online class. And so, as I said before, the syllabus will set the expectations for you. Get to know those due dates. Put reminders for yourself to submit on time. Put reminders for yourself to check in on your class. I'm teaching an online class right now, and I have for myself a reminder, and I set in my calendar when I'm going to be checking in to see if my students have responded to discussion boards. So schedule reminders for yourself. That's a helpful way to manage time. Allow some time for technical difficulties, especially if they're going to be synchronous sessions. You want to make sure that everything is connected. And if you're having a problem, be sure, again, goes back to the communication, inform your instructor immediately. Think about the time that you're spending in your online class and the time that you spend out of it. And if you're working like many of our students are, just again, how are you going to set aside time to ensure that you're in your class? And then also to the assignments that you have outside of class. All right, the next one is active learning. As I said, so expect to work, and there's a work with online classes. Be prepared. So a lot of what you're doing, again, you're not necessarily on campus in a class, but your participation is still critical. And so we expect that our students are staying up to date on their assignments, staying up to date on the discussion boards. And the discussion is just that. It's a discussion. It's not just responding to a question, yes, no, it's fine. It's something that's substantive. And that really helps with the learning community in your class. So read through your current week's assignments. Ensure that you're prepared for the discussions and activities, whether they are asynchronous or synchronous. Expect to work and stay engaged in your class. And finally, balance. So online learning, it requires a lot of discipline and motivation. You're with the flexibility that online education brings. There's also freedom to do the work when and where you want, but that also means that you have to hold yourself accountable. So ensure that you have that discipline and self-motivation, and it requires a commitment. So try to find time and set aside time for yourself to do this, but also set aside time for yourself to have balance, again, especially if you're working or have other commitments. You'll be required to be in your online classroom about the same amount of time that you would be in a classroom on campus. So if you are taking a class that is worth 3 credit hours, it would require you to be in the class on campus for about 3 hours. You should expect that you're going to be in your online class for the same amount of time. And that doesn't include the readings and projects and papers that you would be doing outside of the class. So make sure that you have time and that you balance all of your priorities. Environment, if you can, I know that some people can't, but if you can, try to create a spot for yourself to do your work. Set aside some time, set aside a space. If you have to, I have these for a reason because if you have to kind of block out noise and put yourself in the right mindset to do the work, try to do this again so that you can be the most successful. All right, so we'll go to the next slide. And people ask, how are online courses and on-ground courses different? And substantively, they shouldn't be. The way that they're different is in how we deliver the course. So the rigor in developing our courses to be taught on campus compared to be taught online is the same, in that the outcomes should be the same. So I teach a class, and it's psychology applied to work, and the outcomes for the students in the class, whether I'm teaching it on campus, which I do, or I'm teaching it online, the outcomes are the same. Now, how we get to those outcomes will look different. So we have assignments and projects, and we have readings and lectures, but the lecture, the in-class, will look different than the lecture that I have online. So here at the bottom of the screen, you'll see, we use Canvas, that's our learning management system. So all of the material for the class each week will be in a module, which Kayla will show you in just a moment, compared to me being in front of a classroom and telling you what we're going to be doing over the week and all the different activities that we're going to be doing in class. You might be listening to a podcast. You might be watching a video. Flipgrid is a tool that several of our faculty members use to interact, so the students can interact with each other. So the difference, again, is in the way that we deliver the content. Again, the outcomes should be the same. It's just how we're delivering it. So we're using, in the online world, we're using different technology, different tools to instruct. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kayla, who's actually going to show you some examples of how we use the instructional technology.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Can you all see Canvas? Okay, great. So this is an example of one of our courses that we just developed in the spring. So this is, there's some nuances with this because it's not a live course, so you're going to see some placeholders here, but the idea is the same. So every course is developed with a template with an instructional designer, and the template that we created is based on national best practices for online learning. And that idea is so that when you walk, just like we talked about face-to-face courses, when you walk into a classroom, you know what to expect. There are probably going to be desks in the front of the room and your instructor. And with an online course, you're going to walk into this page and know exactly where to go and what's going to be in the home page and how to get to your work and how to get to your assignments. And so the home page will kind of start you off with a welcome message, information about your instructor, and then how to get started, which is these modules. And when I think about modules, it's kind of a folder structure. So all of your content fits within the course, but it also fits in these little boxes, and that'll tell you what you have to do in each week of the course. So usually the first week, we try to open our courses a week before they start and encourage students to go through this Start Here module. And this will get you acquainted with the course, acquainted with your instructor, what kind of textbooks you need to be using, what writing style, library resources you have access to, what to do if you have questions within the course and technology issues come up. So we've tried to provide a wide variety of resources for you so that you know what to do if you need help. We also have an introduce yourself discussion right in the beginning, so you're able to build that community with your fellow classmates and with your instructor. And then a place where you can ask questions. Of course, you're always welcome to email your instructor with questions, but this can help to benefit your classmates of, hey, I have this problem. Maybe somebody else is also having this problem. And a student might have the answer, your instructor will have the answer, and this will help everyone kind of solve similar issues. And then we divide up our content into modules. Every course has 12 modules, and sometimes you might have 15 weeks and sometimes you might have 10, but the idea is that you'll have this module structure with different due dates depending on the term you take it in. And it goes in order with what you need to do. So this About page talks about what's in this module 1, has an introduction, an overview of your learning objectives, and a checklist. So you know exactly what you need to do in that module. And then you can go through each of the content items, like your readings, and learn about the book that you're supposed to be reading, what pages you need to read, And it's laid out pretty clearly in each content type. In this example, the instructor is going to give a live lesson. So we talked about that a little bit earlier, but there are a variety of lecture types. So in some courses, we have all asynchronous lectures where it's pre-recorded videos. In this course, the instructor wanted to have at least 4 sessions throughout the course. So it's like 1 a month. And then we also have some interactive activities. So this activity, they're doing a mind map. And so we created this video where you can actually see the instructor creating the mind map and what that's going to look like. And then you submit that in your assignment for that module. We have other types of interactivities where we have documents that you can fill in and customized tools that'll get you through the course. So here's just an example of that. And then the biggest difference between an on-ground course and an online course is online discussions. Like we talked about earlier, these things might feel a little awkward at first and it's going to feel different, but the more you do them and the more you post in discussion threads, the easier it gets. And you'll start to see kind of like the people you mesh with, and you have similar ideas and you can create that community in this way. So this obviously does not show an example of discussion, but it shows an example of the question. And then it has the instructions. Usually you make your posts by Wednesday. And this can vary from class to class, but it's just generally what we have. And then you'll take that Wednesday through Sunday to respond, offer insights, and move those conversations forward. I can tell you as a former online student myself, when it's a topic that students are passionate about and excited, they will want to discuss it and you will want to interact with them as well. And you will want to discuss what you have to say. And you'll be surprised at the amount of things you can learn in an online discussion, which is really exciting. And then here's an example of an assignment. So in this, they're completing interviews and they're going to go out into the world and interview people and then bring that into their classroom. And we always include kind of the instructions and the overview, but also an estimated time for completion. And this is important so you know exactly how much you should plan. Might not take you 3.5 hours, but it's a rough estimate of how much you should set aside for that week. And then we also include rubrics. So you know exactly what is expected of you and your instructor and how you'll be graded with those assignments. And then just like we had our about page, we also have a wrap-up page. And so this page kind of just tells you what you learned for that module, what your objectives were. Here's your checklist again. And then also a preview of what's next and how that'll connect from this module until the next one. So that's kind of a rough overview of what our courses look like. I can't say that every course is identical to this, but it has a very similar structure, and that's our goal here, so that you can focus on the content, you can focus on your work, and how you're going to achieve the objectives for those classes. And that's all I've got for that section.
So Kayla, can you just tell us what the courses were? Is it those that you were sharing?
Oh yeah, so that course is from a career success strategies course that we provide for all of the School of Professional Advancement students. Sorry, I totally forgot that one.
You know, because that's a great course. It's taught by our career advisor, Cynthia Washington. So I just thought I would shout out to Cynthia and the wonderful course that she's developed with Kayla. So those are some, that's a really high level overview of what it looks like. And as a student who's considering taking an online course, you want to look at the school and are they providing that kind of consistency and experience for students? Are they working with instructional designers who ensure that the outcomes, as we talked about before, those outcomes are the same and that they're met in the class? Is it clear to you what, again, when you're making these decisions, is it clear to you what the schedule is going to look like? Is this asynchronous? Is it synchronous? So as you're making that decision about online classes, those are some of the questions that, that you might want to be asking yourself. So with that, I thought I'd open it up for questions. Does anybody have any questions for me or for Kayla? Do you want to see something more in an online class? Do you want to ask us about our experiences teaching or developing online courses, or taking courses as an online student? we are happy to answer them. And you can write them right into the chat, which is at the bottom of the screen. All right, well, if you think of a question, I don't see any questions coming through. So if you think of a question after this, you know, something is interesting to you and you'd like to get an answer, please feel free to send us an email at asksopa@tulane.edu. You can also learn more information about our programs and our courses by visiting our website at sopa.tulane.edu. You'll see our phone number, our Facebook, Twitter, all of that. If you are interested in our academic programs, please visit our website to learn more. We have admissions webinars that are occurring soon. I believe we have an open house this Wednesday that's happening. You can get that information online. And if you're interested in applying to one of the academic programs at the School of Professional Advancement at Tulane, our deadline, we're accepting applications right now for the fall, and the deadline is August 1st. So if there aren't any other questions, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us this afternoon, and good luck to you in your future, and hopefully you do take an online course. Take good care.